edition of our show. My name is Business. As you all say, and business means money. Stability and business mean a lot of money. A lot has been happening in Egypt. Every week, new visits, new delegations coming up, a lot of action taking place. And we're discussing Germany and Egypt mostly. What's going on, what has been going on, what happened with the visit of Angela Merkel to Egypt here. We have with us Mr. Angus Blair, Chief Operation Officer of an investment bank. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you.
And Dr. Abbas Zori, economic expert. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you.
We'll go for a short break with a report, then we'll come back and start our talk. Stay tuned to us, don't go away.
Minister of Investment and International Cooperation Sahar Nasser announced that Berlin will grant Cairo $250 million as part of a bilateral agreement to support its economic program. Addressing the German-Egyptian Business Forum, the minister said that Germany is considered an important economic partner, expressing hope that the coming stage would witness an expansion of German investments in Egypt. Nasser said that Egypt owns a strategic location which enables it to be a gate for German investors into the African market. The minister noted that Egypt was currently working on finalizing a number of legislations on financial mechanisms to make the investment atmosphere more conducive, noting that a priority is given to small and medium enterprises and expanding the financing of macro projects. Nasser said that Egypt was exerting also its utmost efforts to end bureaucracy and raise the skill of its workers and laborers. The forum was attended by German Minister of Trade and Energy and German head of the German Industrial and Trade Chamber Union, in addition to a number of businessmen from both countries. The German minister said the previous stage had witnessed strong trials by both countries to consolidate their economic ties, which were presented and represented in a visit paid by President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi to Berlin in 2015, followed by 3 times visit by the German Minister of International Cooperation to Egypt. The German minister noted that the German business community supports ties with Egypt, hailing the Egyptian economic reform program. He said that Egypt is considered the most important economic partner to Germany in Africa, with a trade volume that reached 5.5 billion euros, with an increase of 10% in the previous year alone. The minister added that up to 250 German companies are working in Egypt, providing nearly 35,000 work opportunities in the fields of chemical industries, renewable energy, and information technology.
To Money Means Business, and our guest Dr. Abbas Zori, economic expert. Thank you, sir, again for being with us.
Pleasure.
And Mr. Angus Blair, Chief Operation Officer at the Investment Bank. Thank you again, sir, for being with us. And our topic, what's going on these days, the visit of Angela Merkel. Well, Angela Merkel, what's going on? Let's start with you, sir. How do you see the visit? What does it mean for Egypt? What does it mean for Germany?
It was a high-profile visit. Obviously, following on is the report that we just had noted that it's following on from President Sisi's visit to Germany in 2015. It's an interesting year for Angela Merkel because the elections in September, which she's going to have to fight. And what she's trying to do, I think, both consolidate still her position domestically and internationally, but with some key issues on the agenda. But much of this visit was about business. The fact that Siemens, one of the biggest manufacturers of power generating equipment in the world, received its biggest order in its history from Egypt. And it was cementing that business relationship and which Egypt needs in terms of the increase in production of electricity, because the president here had made it a priority after 2014 to increase, after the power cuts in the summer, in the very hot summer, to increase electricity production. That was vital. So it's a very strong and growing business between Germany and Egypt, and the plan is for German business to increase, coming from about the 20th business partner to become one of the major partners. There was a small business delegation. I think more business people are coming from Germany later in another delegation. But this was a cementing of that very big business between Germany and Egypt in power generation, and looking for other issues related to the economic stability of Egypt, some issues related to migration, and other issues related to helping small and medium-sized enterprises. There was funding of around $500 million, half of that to go for specific programs in the government, and the other half is for real help in the very small microfinance and then to SMEs, which I think is fascinating. I'm very glad to see that was made a priority in these discussions, because it's vital to create the new economic Egypt.
Yes.
That the very small sector, really that microfinance, helping the 1 or 2 person businesses, new businesses particularly, they might have access to capital. So that's exciting for me, because it really helps on the ground and really pushes growth for the future. So I like that element of the discussions.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about it. Let me ask you a question that came to my mind right now. Well, of course, time is different, and the situation is different. Everything is different. But she's a strong woman, Angela Merkel. She's been there, for quite some time. How do you think, knowing Margaret Thatcher, also in the state for some time, is there any kind of comparison?
No.
Nothing.
No. I've met both. I haven't met both. I met Margaret Thatcher in the past, but. What I would say about Angela Merkel, for me, she's a modern-day political hero for what she did in Germany. It's very, very tough, but she took a very humane decision to help a country, the people who were leaving, find a home. And it hasn't gone down very well domestically, but what you've seen in Germany, you've seen an increase in, you will see probably, still looking ahead, an increase in economic production. And the Syrians who've moved into Germany, I think, will be very good new Europeans, because they're both educated, willing to work hard, and I've seen them, for example. So I think that for me, it's a very different political approach. Actually, Angela Merkel is both tough and soft at the same time. And I think she, in many ways, is more pragmatic. Margaret Thatcher was a revolutionary for the UK, and it needed at the time, because people forget that after, we call it the winter of discontent, when literally half the country was near enough, was on strikes, that she came in and that we needed to transform Britain.
Yes.
And it happened. There were bits about that were not very popular and difficult, especially closing state-run enterprises. Mines in particular, and whole communities devastated as a result. But it helped modernize Britain in other ways, which we needed. We'd been too state-oriented, and we had to grow up. And I think that's a bit of the difference. And the other issue, too, is in Germany, it's much more, it's run in a different way. It's a much more collaborative private sector than it is in Britain. Union representatives on the board and so on. So in that way, the traditions are different and the effects are different, but both have been transformational in many ways. So I wasn't criticizing Margaret Thatcher when I said, no, it's just in a different way. Angela Merkel, I think for me, is a very different political animal.
Yeah. Dr. Abbas, for the visit, in general, how do you see it?
Well, I see the visit very positive for Egypt, and because the history between Germany and Egypt, it's since 50 years. And the one before Merkel, which was also affected, that was Helmut Schmidt. Yeah. So the relation between Egypt and Germany, it's very strong since a very long time. Germany is one of the biggest country in Europe in the moment. And the visit was not only for business, but it was also for another reasons. For business, I mean, last year the business between Germany and Egypt was about 5.3 million euro, and since long time that Germany has given Egypt about 5.5 million euro for investment and for help. What Germany has imported from Egypt last year was about 1.7 million euro. Beside the business, what the gentleman has recommended in his speech about Siemens and the investment between Egypt and Germany. In 2018, they will finish the 3 generators of electricity, which has added to Egypt about 50% of the energy what now is. For example, the new Cairo, which is building outside on the road. The second is Germany has a lot of experts which we can use in Egypt for a lot of things which we cannot discover yet. As I said before, we have a lot of resources in Egypt, and we need experts to help us to get it out. So the German got this one, so we have to use it. The second was the visit about the migration. As we all know, the last 2 or 3 years, the migration has been increased from the Mediterranean Sea to Europe, and that affects the European economy. Also, it was a lot of extent that people have just drowned, and a lot of youth from Egypt just immigrate, and coming also from Africa and goes through Egypt and Libya. She asked the president if we could build some camps for those people to collect. But as a wise answer, I think this is a difference between the culture in Europe and the culture in Egypt, which is very normal. The president has answered, we don't have camps because they're living between the Egyptian as Egyptian. This is we got used to. I mean, in Europe you have to build camps because they got used to the culture, also for the language and also for the moral, which in Europe. But in Egypt they are from Arab country and they have the same religions, and this make difference that they could feel at home in the same place. So I think the visit was very positive and was very effective, and I was glad that she visited also El Azhar and also visited the church because they are looking forward to have some leaders for the Islamic people in Europe, educated people. They could give the good information, they could protect the youth from being terrorism. So it was very positive, and I'm glad that she came. And as has been recommended, Mrs. Merkel is very strong personality. She is well educated, and she is from German East. So she has been born between the people who need help and also need to take care of. So she got all the idea, and she reached a lot of change in the German politics. And as we all know, German politics is very stable. They don't have too much trouble, and it could be an example for a lot. And it gives me a lot of pleasure to work with the German, because I respect them as I respect the British well, because they are honest in their word, and if they help with pleasure and not only for money. They help because they need to work it out in infrastructures. And if I can give you the amount of money that has been taken from Egypt, of investment in Egypt, it's about 14 million euro, and that is a lot of money. So for German, it's good for the business and also for the experts, and for Egypt, it's good for the extra energy which we can use for our factories and for our industry in the future. That's what I can say about the visit to for Mrs. Merkel to Egypt.
Well, the point about the energy, would that, like, do you think, like, sometime, like, wouldn't be right away, but would help in opening the factories that had problems with energy? Would that be, helping?
We discussed this actually before, and I mean the fact that historically, a few years ago, when there were power cuts, it was creating a lot of bad news domestically, regionally, and globally, and it was a disincentive to try to attract foreign direct investment. And you can't now, businesses can plan, existing businesses and businesses that would want to consider coming to Egypt now know they're going to have 24-hour power. And they know the pricing too. It's a realistic price, not subsidized, which is good because the state has been losing because of the budget deficit has been so high in Egypt. Part of the plan is to ensure that everyone's paying the realistic price for electricity. And for businesses, the fact that they know when they come in, whether it's in the new Suez Canal zone or anywhere in Egypt, frankly, because the power stations are all over, from the south, from Beni Suef, to the east and the north, and Barulos and other power stations. The fact that they can open, if it's factories, whatever business it is, power cuts now for quite a few years should not be a problem. But clearly, with a growing population and also growing economy and more diversification in the economy, the fact is that Egypt's going to have to continue to invest in power generation. And I have to say, I do hope that renewable power will be part of that equation for the future because of environmental issues now. Egypt's helped itself now for the next few years through the combined cycle gas power stations particularly. But it needs to do a lot more, I think, in ensuring that you cut down on both imports of fuel and gas, but also to make sure that you're not using the gas for yourself. You're able to perhaps use more solar power and wind power to be able to cut the CO2 emissions for Egypt in totality. So I hope that's part of the equation for the future.
So, you wanted to talk also about the export from Egypt here. Like you said that Germany imports from Europe, from Holland, agricultural products.
Well, we cannot export manufacture to Germany in the moment because they are the manufacturing country, actually, and they are well in industry and they're expert. So we can import this from them. As well, we can export to them our agriculture production. In Egypt, we do have a lot of very well agriculture production, but the European Union, they got some relocation for export. For example, the pesticide, which I can give my advice to the Minister of Agriculture, which has been just taking his place since about 2 weeks. That they have to give a lot of attention to the agriculture in Egypt, in irrigation and also in pesticide. Germany, it's a huge country and they import a lot of agriculture production from South America and from Turkey and from everywhere. And because of the high procedure of quality, they try to import the needs from European country, while our Egyptian production goes, for example, I work in Holland and I have my companies there, and of course we import a lot from Egypt, and the German, we sell to the German from Holland. So I would like to change this, that all the agriculture production goes from Egypt direct to Germany. And it is easy to can do, but we have to prove our agriculture production without any extra pesticide, which is not good for the human use. And this is what I would like to add. So I think if the Minister of Agriculture will do his job well with his team, that they can arrange this, that we could...
How did he receive your advice concerning that?
I beg your pardon?
How did he receive your advice concerning the exporting to Germany, or let's say the land, like the crops, the pesticides, all that, as you just advised?
Well, normally they have a lot of methods they send to us, And this we have to use. And it's not very difficult. And they know that in the Minister of Agriculture. But actually, the farmers do it wrong. But if the Minister of Agriculture will arrange and will take care of that, we could have export the most of the best quality we have. And then we can collect a lot of money from that, direct from Egypt.
Okay. There is one thing that Dr. Adil Bishai, the American University, said before that asparagus, for example, we just plant here. We can plant asparagus, and then it doesn't need pesticides or anything like that. So it's clean, and then we don't really consume in Egypt asparagus here.
Oh,
it's
yes,
not
we do.
but it's not very popular among Egyptians, asparagus. But then in Europe they do that. So why not? Why don't we just export that to Europe?
Well, that's what some people do wrong. But there is a lot of there is a Belgian organization. They hired a land in Nobaria, and they do aggregate the asparagus here, and they export it to Europe as well.
Okay.
And our asparagus is very, very good in taste, actually.
Yes.
It might not be in the color, and it might not be in the length or the mixture, but in taste is the best because of the land which we have here in Egypt. So maybe we can increase that.
Definitely.
But for asparagus, we are not expert in asparagus production in Egypt, agriculture, but we could use the expert of the Belgium or the other people. They use it and they sell it and they eat it to aggregate it in Egypt. So it is not so difficult. But we do have production in Egypt for asparagus. It might be not enough, and it might be that the most of the production from asparagus, they export it to Europe to get more money, and the other people of Egypt import it from Europe.
Okay.
That's what we have.
Okay. We go for a short break with a report and come back. Stay tuned to us. Don't go away.
International rating agencies said the rising levels of foreign exchange reserves, a return of private capital inflows, and appreciation of currency marked the progress in Egypt's gradual external rebalancing in early 2017. Further fiscal consolidation, in addition to external rebalancing, would lay the groundwork for a broader-based improvement in sovereign credit metrics in 2018. However, several challenges still lie ahead, including the risk of social unrest, which is substantial. Even with the smooth progress of the envisaged reforms, it would take several years to reduce gross general government debt to more sustainable levels. Foreign exchange reserves have continued to rise, with net international reserves reaching $26 billion towards the end of January, which marks $2 billion increase from December 2016 and $10 billion increase from July 2016. However, the Egyptian pound has regained 20% of its value against the US dollar since late December, reversing some of its losses following November's flotation. A return of foreign inflows into Egyptian treasuries prompted a partial retracement of government debt yields. According to Fitch's inflows from multilateral and bilateral institutions, the resumption of foreign portfolio inflows and remittances after the authorities floated the pound, as well as import compression and improving export activity, were the main drivers for such positive developments. Fitch Rating believes that the completion of the first review of the IMF program before the end of June would release another $1.25 billion, which will further increase their reserves and boost both economic and investor confidence.
back to Money's business. And Mr. Blair, well, this visit, how do you see it in terms of, let's say, economically also, talk about SMEs, how is it, the level of SMEs here, stress, to help them actually grow here, because what we have here mostly is SMEs in Egypt. So how is the government helping, and how is this visit somehow helping or giving a boost to that?
The backbone of any economy, always in any country, whether in Holland where you live or in Britain, wherever it is, are really small enterprises from 1 to 10 people. The backbone of almost every country, and in Egypt is no different. The problem is, though, the very large informal economy. That's not a problem. It's helped, that's actually helped. The large informal economy has really helped economic growth stay in positive territory in the last few years. But there's a lack of access to capital because they're outside the formal system, lack of education, lack of knowledge as to how to develop a business plan, where to go and access money if you want to expand. And a way to formalize the informal sector is to make it easier for these informal businesses to access capital, because you want them to grow and hire more people, because in that case you're hopefully going to both grow the economy and improve employment. So the fact that a number of countries are trying to help Egypt with this, I know my own country, Britain's trying to help in a variety of ways, and in startups too, and now Germany with the $250 million, it's vital. And of course the central bank now has new regulations in place now for over a year to encourage banks to lend to SMEs. Yes. But banks have to really pull their finger out and really try to set up new parts of their business to make this work, because it's not easy. They're doing it almost from nothing. In Lebanon, it's not the first time this is tried. The Lebanese central bank, because the political system in Lebanon is utterly dysfunctional, so the central bank is doing the job of the government by a new program to help through the banks invest in startups, particularly in smaller businesses. It's a tremendous, tremendous scheme. But here, I think much more needs to be done beyond money, actually. I think that there really got to be ways for people to understand where they can go for help. Yeah. Because there's no point going to ask for money unless you're developing a business plan, and people won't know how to do a business plan and present it. They may know what they want. Yeah. Because this, as I see it, Egypt is a society of lots of entrepreneurs. And it's a highly diversified economy. At my investment bank, Pharos, for example, we're constantly looking at ways in which to expand the business and help the economy. Yes. And that isn't just a case of the equity markets and the debt markets, or in mergers and acquisitions, and we've just done a very big deal bringing nearly $250 million, helping this company bring that money into Egypt. The fact that we're looking for the future, we've got to be looking at developing big businesses of the future. And I think that's where I think Egypt really has to focus. I mean, the government has to really focus on saying we need to have an arc of a plan over the next 20-odd years that will encompass education and setting up perhaps business centers across the country to help people find work, but also educate people to how to open up businesses, where to go to formalize it, how to access capital. So for me, that was, as I said at the beginning, is a very positive element of Angela Merkel's visit. And I'm glad to say it. And I think that will be carried up and carried on by other business delegations, including, I think, others from the UK. There was just actually a very big trade delegation here from all over the UK only about 2 weeks ago. Yes. 3 weeks ago. And I think that this is an area that you're going to hear much more about, is helping the SME sector.
The same with the British delegation, they worked on that.
Part of it, but the main part of that was basically trying to say to, in terms of the British business delegation, to look at other areas. Yes. Because one of the issues, because of the various problems that Egypt's faced now since 2011, the perception outside is that it isn't the easiest place to do business. And frankly, actually, it's not. It's very bureaucratic. But the fact is that it's a place where you can make money in the longer term, but there's always checks and balances and pluses and minuses when you invest in any country. I would like to see Egypt behave a little bit more like the Emirates, for example, that like to say yes in business, whereas in Egypt it's we'll think about it or we'll take time to do it. And I think that there's so much more needs to be done to help all business by cutting the bureaucracy, because that would really help everyone in saying that we can give you these permissions in a matter of hours or days at the most, rather than in some cases months. So I think that has to be the overall package of helping the SME sector.
How do you see our SMEs here in Egypt? What do we need?
Well, I think the SMEs, they have it very difficult in the moment, and I agree about they should have get help.
Yeah.
I look at the financial side. For example, the banks and the loan. Yeah. Each company need some financial help to as push-up. We have been interested in Egypt since a very long time in big companies. And the trust between big companies and the bank is much more than a small SME or a small company goes. Well, actually, I'm looking for the future for a change.
Yeah.
The change is that we don't have to depend on the big companies, but we have to force the big companies to build some SMEs around, or small companies, to get some production from. For example, I give you a small example. If we have a big company, they produce some chips for the computer.
Yes.
Why should not they train and help small companies that they can work beside and deliver some parts to them? That's one point. The second point is we have to work with the banks in Egypt, and not only one bank, but all banks, that they could have arranged the loan easily for those companies. As experience, and as I know, that every small companies sweat and stay very long time until they get loan from the bank. And I ask myself, why? Why should they do that while they get all the money?
Yeah.
And then also from the government, they supported the bank to give the loan to each small company that they can start and they can make production and sell it to others. So that's one point. About training, well, they should have give someone who does not swim, they give him a face, said, go to the ocean. No, we need to build some
training centers,
and also is not only about how they work, but also how they can work in financial, because someone can get the expert for work, but he does not know how to manage his company financially. But this has to be from A to Z. And the government must, and I said must because it's really needed, control that. And so they should have arranged a group to manage those people and also to give advice to the bank for the investment in the SME in Egypt. Yeah. That's what I can say.
Okay. Sir, tourism, German tourism in Egypt, how would this visit help in it? And how was it with Germany?
Interestingly, tourism recovered in December, and I think we saw it in Cairo actually, yeah. And there were anecdotal reports of hotels being 100% occupied in Aswan and Luxor. And in December, which are the last statistics issued, tourism numbers are up year on year about 25%, which is fantastic, because a very good source of two things. First of all, foreign exchange, and then secondly, employment. Tourism is vital for the future of Egypt, the growth of tourism again, resurgence of tourism, and that's where Germany has already helped by allowing flights to return to Sharm el-Sheikh in November. So automatically it meant a recovery in German tourists into Sharm. And I think that what will happen is, with all the more positive news that's coming out, more flights will come. Because one of the problems that Egypt's faced is an issue of airline capacity, which isn't just the number of flights, it's the size of aircraft. Yeah. And you can see in terms of flying from London, with Egypt Air and British Airways, the fact that you need to have actually, I think, more flights and definitely larger aircraft.
Definitely.
Because you've got 100% occupancy sometimes and some days. You can't get increased tourism if you can't increase the airline capacity.
Of course.
And we were in Luxor as a firm a few weeks ago for a weekend, and we were the only plane at Luxor when we left, flying back to Cairo. So we need to get tourists back, and that means convincing the charter airlines across Europe to come back, because there's definitely demand, but you can't fulfill that demand if you're not actually flying. So I think the message from Merkel will be, look, I've been and it's safe, and I think that also the Scandinavian countries that opened up a few weeks ago too, Norway, Finland and Sweden and Denmark, allowing flights too back into Sharm el-Sheikh. So more and more tourists are coming, and hopefully in time that will mean the Brits and Russians too, in the short term, to be able to try to return to boost tourism back to be back on trend to where it was pre-2011.
So what about the Dutch tourists to Egypt?
Well, I agree about the point, but there is two points which I would like to talk about. Tourism is very weak manufactured things, because anything affects tourism. If in any country,
very sensitive, you know.
Yeah, very sensitive. If anything happens, people get scared, and they said, "Okay, do not go to Egypt." Okay. If I would like to talk about the tourism to Egypt, Egypt is a wonderful country, and they got a lot of things. They got the civilization, they got history, and the most important thing is they got good weather in winter and summertime. And Egypt is a very huge country you can go from north to east, and you can spend a lot of days and you didn't see whole Egypt. So you can enjoy your stay in Egypt very well. But I would like to add one thing. A tourist needs a place to go where he or she feel very safe. That's number one. Second is they are looking for, tourism is different. Someone would like to go for civilizations and museum, and the other would like to go for the beach. Well, we have both. We have everything. But we need to train our employee in the hotels. We got very good hotels, and we got a lot of employee, but we need to train our employee. We need to improve our transportation. And I mean it, I say it once and second and third time. We need to improve our transportation. It's not only by buses, but we need to increase trains, which tourism or anybody feel very safe on it. And we would like to have a group of people managing the tourism with a good training about language, attitude, and also we have to take care. We have a good food, but European or American or Canadian or Australian, they have a lot of habit in food. So we have to
just cater to that in certain restaurants.
We have to make the catering internationally for all these people, are not only Egyptian food, but international food.
Okay, one last thing, because we're running out of time. How do you see the future, the very near future? I know all the lights, the light of what's been happening economically speaking, and all the delegations coming to Egypt, sir.
There's an enormous increase in interest in Egypt from the global business community. People going into the stock market, the debt markets, and also in terms of foreign direct investment. Now post the devaluation, so you reset the asset pricing in Egypt. So the end result is that people think, oh, this is a really interesting market now. And what Egypt now has to do to take advantage of that interest is, I think, follow up on ways to make doing business in Egypt easier, better, and quicker. And then you have to work on other issues, the bureaucracy and so on. Because one issue, if I wanted to just say, when I mentioned earlier about the Emirates, as a foreigner you can go to the Emirates and set up a company very quickly with a laptop. And you could start up a digital company, and that happens all over in the Emirates, in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. In Egypt, it's all about big business. The mindset of the government authorities have to change to the 21st century. The world is going to a service economy. You're using robots and AI. So we have to begin to consider that in terms of policy in Egypt, I think.
Mr. Blair, thank you very much for being with us. Mr. Zouri, thank you very much for being with us. We enjoyed your presence and you honored us with your presence. As for our viewers, thank you for being with us. We'll see you again next week. Nermin Nazim signing off. Goodbye for now. We'll go for the latest on the stocks market.
The chairman of the Citadel Capital, Ahmed Heikel, said that trial operations for the Egyptian refining Germany project are expected to begin by the end of 2017. The project is expected to operate with full capacity by May 2018. Investments in this project amount to nearly $3.7 billion, of which $2.8 billion have already been spent since the beginning of the project's execution until the moment. The project contributes to covering Greater Cairo with petroleum products and to use the full capacity of storage, warehouses, and refineries with an annual fuel production target of 4.1 million tons. The British Embassy in Cairo said President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson have finalized a $150 million loan guarantee agreement. Johnson said the UK and Egypt have many shared interests, as Egypt is the top economic partner and strong ally against terrorism and extremist ideas. He added that he looks forward to continue to strengthen the close relationship between the two countries. The UK's investments in Egypt amounted to about 30 billion Egyptian pounds from 2011 till the moment. The Central Bank of Egypt will issue treasury bonds worth 600 million Egyptian pounds in coordination with the Ministry of Finance to support the country's budget deficit. The treasury bonds will be issued through two tranches, 5-year bonds at 350 million Egyptian pounds and 10-year bonds worth 250 million Egyptian pounds. The Egyptian Finance Ministry estimates the total budget deficit for fiscal year 2016-2017 at around 319 billion Egyptian pounds compared to an actual deficit of 339 billion Egyptian pounds in the year before. The Egyptian Minister of Electricity and Renewable Energy said that the Dab'a nuclear project has reached its final stages before signing the construction and operation contracts with the Russian side. Mohammed Shakir al-Marqabi, during his speech in a town hall meeting with the local community of Dab'a on Saturday, said that the first Egyptian nuclear power plant will include 4 units with a total capacity of 4,800 megawatts. The power plants will have no polluting or greenhouse gas emissions, and he also added that the plant will have the highest international levels of security. The Egyptian Ministry of Industry and Trade said that exports to Canada grew 35% in 2016, resulting in a trade surplus of $529.5 million. Egyptian exports to Canada totaled $780 million last year compared to $580 million in 2015. On the other hand, imports from Canada decreased by 25% to $250.5 million last year from $334.7 million. The statement also indicated that exports to Canada flourished in 2016, including the export of oranges, which surged 500%, as well as molasses, which increased by 240%. UAE consumer prices rose 22.29% year-on-year in January 2017. The consumer price index went up to 107.19 points in January 2017 compared to 104.8 points in January 2016. The CPI increased 0.7% month-on-month in January 2017. The goods and services group increased 9.31%, followed by the costs, healthcare and education, which rose 5.66% and 4.99% respectively. On the other hand, Dubai saw the biggest rise in consumer prices in 3.66%, followed by Fujairah, Ajman and Abu Dhabi at 2.9%, 2.3% and 1.8% respectively. OPEC and non-cartel members may be employing a wrong-headed approach to shrinking a global supply glut. After months of speculation, negotiations, and anticipation, OPEC and 11 non-OPEC producers, including Russia, came together in December and hammered out a historic deal to curtail oil production. The idea was to make a dent in the world's oversupply, which has hammered prices that peaked at more than $100 a barrel back in 2014. Business rates are a ticking time bomb for small companies in England, which should be offered emergency help. Labour Rebecca Long-Bailey said many firms faced cliff edge rises when new valuations take effect in April and that the process had been mishandled. The government says it has established a $3.6 billion transitional fund to help businesses facing big jumps in rates. Labour plan would include a fund worth $150 million a year for the next 3 years for small and medium-sized firms at risk of bankruptcy due to sharp and unmanageable increases. China's stocks slipped after the securities regulator vowed to step up its campaign against speculation and hinted about loosening its grip on new share offerings, moves that would benefit the market in the long term but hurt sentiments in the short run. Hong Kong stocks were little changed as the market's strong rally since mid-February showed signs of fatigue. The remarks followed a regulator's move over the weekend to punish the insurance unit of financial conglomerate Powing Group for speculative trading and a 3.48 billion yuan penalty on investor Tianyan for market misbehavior. Greece must not be granted a bail in that would involve creditors taking a loss on their loans. The IMF has called for Greece to be granted substantial debt relief, but this is opposed by Germany, which makes the largest contribution to the budget of the European Stability Mechanism, the Eurozone Bailout Fund. Greece and its creditors agreed on Monday to further reforms by Athens to ease a logjam in talks with creditors that has held up additional funding for the troubled Eurozone country. Inspectors from the European Commission, the ESM, the IMF and the European Central Bank are due to return to Athens this week. The gold price was on an upward march this morning, reaching its highest level in 3.5 months. Spot gold was trading at $1,256 an ounce, up around $20 from its level for much of this week after the release of minutes from the latest Federal Reserve meeting, which are keenly watched for signs for the central bank may be increasing interest rates. Rates hikes at first were not disappointing, and the minutes noted many policymakers felt that they should be ready to raise short-term interest rates again fairly soon. Gold tends to react negatively to interest rates increase because they increase the opportunity cost of holding non-yielding assets such as gold.